across the miles and across the internet, which probably requires its own blessing at this point. We should probably have a bracha for internet and the capacity to see one another and be with one another. Many people have noted that, they certainly didn't have this during the pandemic of 1918. So though we miss one another deeply, this is such a gift. So we have just closed out Hanukkah. It went by very quickly, at least for me. It was hard to imagine what Hanukkah 2020 would be like. And I think it was one of the most special that I've ever experienced, seeing many of your faces and others on the screen every night, and really making a concerted effort to be together in community. So tonight's the night, having closed out the 8th day and going directly into Shabbat. I think there's something really special about that. Going from the Festival of Lights into our sacred pause. And I think we have a special and sacred chance to really think about the harvest of light, taking all the light that we shared, that we spread, that we created together over the last 8 days, light that we created whether or not we were feeling particularly light ourselves, whether or not we felt in deep darkness. We took on the mitzvah of creating light in some way during this, during the Festival of Lights. And now we get to bring it with us into Shabbat and into the work of the world that follows. So as we light, yet again, candles, this time our Shabbat candles, I invite you to think about what is it that you are bringing with you, having harvested that light, having sown that light and harvested that light. What are you bringing? So one light I have is Rabbi Jethro Berkman, who is kind enough to be accompanying me tonight, which I don't take for granted. We have many creatures, human and canine, in our home who need tending, but Jethro is taking time out to help us have a more beautiful musical service. So if you're following along in the book at home, we're on page 2 for the candle lighting blessing. Maybe as you bring your hands towards you, if that's your custom, you'll envision what it is that you're bringing into yourself in a new and deep way following Hanukkah, really internalizing and integrating that light into yourself. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Before Rabbi Schaefer leads us into Shalom Aleichem, I want to remind you to take some grounding Shabbat breaths. I was so focused on talking about light that I forgot to remind you. And maybe it's become second nature if you've been a Shabbat regular with us. But do take some really deep inhales and let some complete exhales out. Ones that come in and come out from your diaphragm, from your belly. Notice how your body's feeling. Notice how your soul is feeling, and think about what you might need from this Shabbat. And Rabbi Schaefer, go ahead and introduce Shalom Aleichem.
I was thinking I would just sit here and breathe for a while. That felt so good.
Good. One day we'll have a service just like that, meditative service.
Well, I just want to orient everybody. I know most people have been with us for many months now, but if you'd like to follow along in the digital prayer book, there's a link in our Zoom chat. And there are many ways to access these prayers by following along with the liturgy, by singing the Hebrew, or just by listening. We invite you to bring your voices into this virtual space and to sing along with us. And hopefully that way of singing and lifting our voices, we can feel each other's presence even through these screens. I think there's a way of experiencing each other's joy through singing that is so special on Shabbat. So we turn to page 24 for Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zichem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So tonight I wanted to add back in Ana Bechoach. So we're sharing the screen here. And you may remember Ana Bechoach is a quite ancient line of ancient poetry that really is a plea to God to untie the knots, untie what we feel is constricting us, and that can take lots of forms. So this might be a time when you need to do some neck rolls, or gently give yourself a little neck massage if it's those kinds of knots, K-N-O-T, that are constraining you. And maybe there's something more on a spiritual level or an emotional level that is constraining you at this time. So some of you may not be familiar with it, so just join in as you feel comfortable. And the words mean, please God, untie our knots. Let's just focus on that line for now. Loosen us, open us for what we need to receive spiritually. Ana bechoach, bechoach, gedulat yemincha, yemincha, tatir tzerura, chaber minatamcha, sagbenu, torenu, nora, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai.
We turn together to L'chado D, which can be found on page 20 in our prayer book. And it's been a while since many of us were probably at an in-person wedding. But if we can recall the joy of what it felt like to see a beautiful bride dressed up in a gown, to rise at that moment when she made her entrance into the room. That is that feeling of excitement and joy that we should feel as we sing this prayer together, as we feel Shabbat descend amongst us. And so please join us in singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 as we greet the Shabbat bride.
From pages 20 and 21. Lecha dodi likrat kalai yadai 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 bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kalai yadai 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 bnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem ultiferet ve'ritila lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadai 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 bnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor haberacha מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת קלה ילדי 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 בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה ילדי 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 בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה ילדי 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 בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה ילדי 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 בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קלה יללי 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 בני שבת לך דודי לקראת קלה יללי 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 בני שבת נקבלה. So leading into Magadlu, and we're in touch with our sense of awe, I wondered if we have a couple of people who'd like to share here on the Zoom, if you'd like to unmute and share a moment of awe or wonder from the past week, or perhaps from during all of Hanukkah, if you want to share a moment. It could be big or small. So go ahead and let us know if you would like to share something.
I would just like to say that I really enjoyed looking at all the candles lit last night. It was such a sense of peace, beauty, and hope for the year to come. It just hit me a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
I like going to the services on TOS even though they're on Zoom.
Thanks, Esther. Anyone else? I was pretty awestruck by the amount of snow that we got. It was pretty awesome because I think we had more snow than we had all of last year combined. And I don't know, it brought joy, I think, to a lot of people, even those of us who don't necessarily love winter. It felt pretty magical. So here's hoping that as we bring that harvest of light into this Shabbat and into the week and the weeks ahead, that we have many moments to experience awe and wonder. Let's sing our Hallelujah Magadlu round. We're on the top of page 342. Hallelujah, 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 Magadu, Masechaya. Me'odam ku machshevo secha. Magadu Masechaya. Me'odam ku machshevo secha. Magadu Masechaya. Me'odam ku machshevo secha. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
If you joined us for candle lighting on Tuesday night, you got to hear our ARS religious director, Amy Deutsch, ask one of the tefillah questions to our religious school students. And they were focused on the Baruch, on the call to worship. And she said, we have all these words about blessing in this call to worship. So why do we need the last two words of the response, Le'olam Va'ed, which she translated as to infinity and beyond, but really, forever and ever. But to infinity and beyond is a beautiful translation. And there were so many wonderful answers. As always, the insights of our children are often the most poignant and beautiful. But we need that reminder every day, every week, so that we don't stop blessing God. We don't stop blessing each other. It's not something we do one night or one Shabbat, but something that we have to continue throughout our lives. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit for the Baruch, which can be found on page 28, to bless God now and forever.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. It's traditional to follow the Baruch Hu and precede the Shema with a blessing in the evening, giving thanks for both the darkness and the light and the way that they're so seamlessly woven into one another. I want to share with you, in place of that blessing, a meditation on light for the end of Hanukkah that was written by Aidan Salovey. The miracle didn't end after 8 days. The miracle was about hearts. The miracle was about hands, rededicated to the service of God and humanity, rededicated to Torah and mitzvot, rededicated to the soul of the universe. The miracle didn't end after 8 days of consecrated oil ran out. 8 days of consecrated oil burning radiant in holy testimony to God's saving power. The miracles of love and hope still shine luminous in your heart. We are surrounded by light. We are a source of light. We are mirrors of God's light. And so we are called to serve the Most High with prayer and song, with chesed and gemilut chasadim, with tikkun and tikkun olam, with ahava and ahavat chinam. The miracle is ours now. We will carry it into the world. We will be the light itself, the light of justice, the light of peace. And now we turn to page 32. באהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו Israel. Now I'm going to invite everyone to unmute for the Shema. It's going to sound a little crazy, but I think there's something beautiful about hearing each other's voices, all saying Shema together. So if you wish to unmute, feel free. And together we'll hear our voices at different times, and that will remind us about the power of the deepest kind of listening. Shema Yisrael Eloheinu Adonai Now we can.
No, you're muted.
You're muted.
Okay, now I'm back. We're on page 36 for V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. היו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך שרתם לאור ביתך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We turn together to page 40 for the Song of the Sea as we remember our people's redemption from slavery in Egypt and their chance to head to a free land, to a land of possibilities. We sing together Mi Chamocha on page 40.
Start with the nigun. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Ya lai 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 lai, ya la lai lai la la lai, ya lai lai, ya lai, ya la lai 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 lai. Mi kamocha ba'enim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora ve'ilot osei fele Adonai, yimlok le'olam va'ed. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים זילי יענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד Ya lai, ya lai lai, ya la la lai, ya la la lai, ya lai, ya lai lai, ya la lai lai lai, ya lai, ya lai lai, ya la lai, ya la la lai, ya lai lai, lai lai, ya lai lai, ya lai, ya lai. Before we sing our Hashkivenu blessing, I wanted to get a few folks to perhaps reflect on what gives you hope. This blessing really is our articulation of our hope that everything will be all right, that we'll wake up to a new day. But what do we have inside of us that gives us hope? What are some of our experiences? What are some of our deepest truths that can give us hope? Does anyone want to share just briefly something that gives you hope? You can just unmute and go ahead if you have something to share. I'll start seeing people getting the vaccine for COVID.
The countdown to a new president.
Yes.
People showing kindnesses to one another.
Yes. Thank you, Spence.
Our children.
Yes. Amen to all of this. We're going to turn to page 42 in the book for Hashkivenu. And then we'll spread over that canopy of peace with Ufros Aleinu after that. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Go to sleep tonight. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Go to sleep tonight. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu sukat, Baruch atah Adonai, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, over Jerusalem, and over all who dwell on earth. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. I don't know why it's doing
We're going to stand in body or spirit as we're able for the Amidah. Tonight we're going to chant the first three blessings. We're going to chant the introductory blessing aloud, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach. That's on page 46. And then Josh is going to give us some beautiful instrumental music so that we can use that as a backdrop for our own prayer and reflection. Of course, if you'd like silence for your private Amidah, you can just turn off your volume, and then we'll join back together with Yehi Shalom, which we'll share on our screen as our prayer for peace. So we're starting on page 46. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Going to move toward our prayer for peace now. Again, this line comes from a psalm, very, very ancient poem, asking for two kinds of peace, shalom and shalva. You might think of them as peace and serenity or tranquility. We know that we need peace within us in order to create peace in the world. So sometimes I like to replace our prayer for peace with this. This speaks, I think, to when we think of a stronghold or a palace, as mentioned here, we can think of our own souls, our own spirits, and our bodies, and whether or not they hold enough peace and serenity within them to bring that outward into the world. So tonight we'll sing these very ancient words, that there may be peace, there may be the deepest kind of peace, and ultimately that we may be able to bring that peace to one another. Yehi Shalom Bechilech Shalva Be'armenotayich Yehi Shalom בחילך שלווה בארמנותייך יהי שלום 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 בחילך שלווה בארמנותייך. We now pray for healing. If there's someone in your world you're praying for healing of body or of spirit, please feel free to mention them in the chat, whether you're on Zoom or on Facebook, or simply to say their name aloud in whatever space you're in. If you're watching us on the live stream.
Can I say your name, Rabbi Audrey, because you have cold?
Thank you, Esther. That's very kind. Thank you. From our community, we pray for healing for Zita Samuels, Linda Hoffman, Peter Feldman, Fischel Ben Yisrael, Hetty Feldman, Eileen Schwartz, Chava Esther Bat Chaya Ruchel V'Chaim Yona, Kate Bingham, Sarah Robinson, Esther Neshama, Tammy Griffin, Richard and Margate Hershey, Fred and Sina Berkowitz, and Karen's brothers, mother-in-law, and father-in-law, Eva and Jean's friend Chris, Liesel, Alan, Marcia, Susan, B. Of course, we also think at this time of the thousands upon thousands who are suffering from COVID, whether the physical effects or the emotional effects, whether they've had long-term effects or are coping with a loved one who is ill. We know that the numbers are out of control in this country and in other places of the world, and we hold as much as we can, we hold everyone who is a part of those numbers in our hearts at this time. May those who care for them have the strength to continue to do so. Before we sing our Mishem Berach, I'm going to insert this blessing for healthcare workers as well. Praying for all healthcare workers, may the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those who put themselves at risk to care for the sick, physicians and nurses and orderlies, technicians and home health aides, EMTs and pharmacists who navigate the unfolding dangers of the world each day to tend to those they have sworn to help. Bless them in their coming home and bless them in their going out. Ease their fear, sustain them. Source of all breath, healer of all beings, protect them and restore their hope. Strengthen them that they may bring strength. Keep them in health that they may bring healing. Help them know again a time when they can breathe without fear. Bless the sacred work of their hands. May this plague pass from among us speedily and in our days. We call to mind everyone in need of healing, body and spirit. And we pray the Misha Berach, the version that's on the middle of page 253. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor Habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Berkman. It's my pleasure to share with everybody tonight a few words of Torah. Last night, our community gathered for the last night of Hanukkah and a special cooking competition, TOS Chopped. Our 4 families made some incredible dishes, and Josh, Rabbi Berkman, and myself got to enjoy discussing and judging their process and creativity. It was fun to read along with everyone's comments, and overall, it was a great example of the way that food can bring people together and build community, even when we're not in the same space. Food, or rather the lack of food, also plays a critical role in this week's Torah portion, Miketz. Joseph is freed from prison and rises to become the second most powerful person in Egypt because he is able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams that there will be 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. And when all the land of Egypt felt the hunger, the people cried out to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph, whatever he tells you, that you shall do." As the famine grows worse and spreads beyond Egypt, the whole world comes to Joseph for food. Among those who make their way down to Egypt were 10 of Joseph's brothers, all except for Benjamin. They hadn't seen each other in over 20 years, and though Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. If we were analyzing this narrative from a literary perspective, we would say that the need for food is what drives the narrative. It's what brings the brothers to Egypt and reunites them with Joseph, albeit temporarily. Of course, this first time in Egypt is not so joyous, as Joseph does accuse his brothers of being spies and imprisons them, and eventually keeps one brother, Shimon, while the rest of the brothers return to Israel and their father Jacob. That is until the famine becomes more severe. Again, the need for food will bring the brothers back to Egypt, this time with Benjamin, and this time for a reunion for good. Of course, the Torah is more than a literary account, and the need for food in the past and in this moment is all too real. Since the pandemic, food insecurity in the United States and in the greater Boston area has only gotten worse. The Greater Boston Food Bank projects that this year, 1 in 8 residents in Eastern Massachusetts will face food insecurity, a nearly 60% increase since before the pandemic. Since last March, the Brookline Food Pantry has needed to triple the amount they spend on food while trying to serve 4 times the number of families. At Ohabei Shalom, our social action committee has made addressing food insecurity one of our main objectives this year. Our working group is developing plans to address this on a local level, and we would love for you to be involved. Thankfully, we will also benefit from our partnership with Shir Chadash, which successfully raised over $1,400 for the Center Street Food Pantry in Newton earlier this year. We will be working together to try and make an impact as the need grows this winter. I'm also incredibly grateful to 2 members of our synagogue who have put us in touch with the Brookline Food Pantry, which has an urgent need to store food which they have gotten, which they'll be able to purchase because of an influx of money from the town of Brookline. And our synagogue will be able to do its part by storing some of this food throughout the coming weeks and months so that it can be distributed to the Brookline community. Given the tremendous need, we have to find ways to alleviate the suffering in our community. In Parshat Miketz, the need for food is not only pushing people together, it is also pushing one of the brothers to do teshuvah. Judah, who had been all too willing to sell his brother into slavery, saying, "What do we gain by killing our brother and covering up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let us not do away with him ourselves." Now, after having a mirror held up to him and his actions, has learned to take responsibility for himself, for his actions, and for others. While Jacob is unwilling to send Benjamin down to Egypt, Judah understands that it is the only way that they will have food and that they will be able to save their family. He says to his father, "Send the boy in my care, and let us be on our way, that we may live and not die, you and we and our children. I myself will be a surety for him. You may hold me responsible. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, I shall stand guilty before you forever." The sense of taking care and responsibility for each other is what must guide us in the months and years ahead. This pandemic is holding up a mirror to us. If we find that 1 in 8 people facing food insecurity is unacceptable, why was it okay that 1 in 13 faced the same issue a year ago? The structural problems that have left people reliant on others' goodwill must be addressed once the acute needs of this moment are filled. I hope that in the months ahead, we can look into that mirror and face up to our responsibility, that we can come together with a sense of purpose and also a sense of joy and sense of community, which we experienced last night, to do our part to help people through this difficult time, to make sure that everybody is okay and nourished, and that we don't have to face this situation again. Shabbat Shalom. And I'll just say, if this is an issue that you're interested in working on, please reach out to me or to our social action chair, socialaction@ohabei.org, and we will put you in touch with the committee that is working on this issue.
Yasher Koach, Rabbi Schaefer. We'll turn to Aleinu on page 282. Reminding ourselves that it is upon us to take responsibility in the ways that Rabbi Schaefer just outlined, and that in fact is a way of praising God, of recognizing that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, and we are obligated to that which transcends us and connects us. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים, ואלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We turn together to Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 294. If you're remembering a loved one and would like to share their name in the chat, I'd invite you to do so now. And I'd also like to share the name of the people in our community who we've recently lost. Tonight we remember Judy Mabel, Adelaide Rosen, the mother of Mitchell Rosen and mother-in-law of Alma Balonen Rosen, Kenneth Kelmanson, the beloved second husband of Rabbi Emily Lipoff, Eileen Frumpkin, the mother of Peter Frumpkin, Norma Weber, the mother of Karen Weber, and Summer Chertok, the father of Rachel Kalmus. We add to those names the names of Jeremy William Cohen, Alan Stark, and we remember that unfortunately 309,000 people have lost their lives to COVID in the US this year. We turn together to page 294 and we rise, if it's our custom, for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach leolam ulamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Vit Hadar, Vit Hale, Vit Halal, Shmei de Kudsha Berechu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tush bechata v'nechemata, Damiran v'yama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, Hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru, amen. Zichronom livracha, may their memories be a blessing for us.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
A big thank you tonight to both Rabbis Berkman. Thank you as always, Rabbi Jethro Berkman, for accompanying us on guitar, and Rabbi Berkman for leading us so beautifully in our service. Thank you to Josh for keeping everything under control behind the scenes. And a big thank you to all of our dogs and children for staying relatively quiet and orderly tonight during services. Even relatively, I said. Even though Hanukkah is over, we have a busy couple weeks coming up. Tomorrow morning, we have a joint service with Shir Chadash, which will be at 10:30 and will include Torah study. And next week, I will be leading an adult ed class called Birth Order, Healthy Chaos. It's a long time request from one of our congregants that we get to examine why the younger sibling seems to find their way to the top. And so we're going to spend 2 sessions starting this Wednesday, December 23rd, examining that question in the Torah. And we hope that you can join us over Zoom. And I want to make sure to highlight that next Shabbat, December 25th, is going to be at 4:30. So whatever your customs are in that day, we hope you'll still join us for Shabbat. We'll meet early at 4:30. And like me, if you like to get your Chinese food and a movie in, you'll still have time to do that after services. Rabbi Berkman and I are also always looking to include your voices in services, and we would love your help sharing your insights into prayers, your insights into any part of our liturgy. So please reach out to us if that's something you're interested, and we would love to include you.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback on that and say, you don't need to worry. You don't need to be a scholar of Judaism. We really are looking for personal insights or reflections inspired by our prayer, and it could be just one sentence. Just because I think it can help us feel more connected as a community in the same way that we ask you for your reflections on the spot. Last week or a couple weeks ago, Larry Green shared some reflections, and that was really lovely. So we would love to just hear from you. Let us know if you have any questions about that, and let us know if you'd like to participate. So we're going to say Kiddush and Motzi now. So if you have a challah, if you have grape juice or wine. Now that I have two dogs, they're playing very animatedly, and so you might hear them growling along to Kiddush. So I'll ask your forgiveness in advance for that. If you want to follow along with Kiddush, we're on page 5. And please rise for Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron le'maaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, זכר לציאת מצרים, כי באנו ובחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. So with two sets of canine eyes staring at me imploringly as they smell the Rosenfeld's challah, going to try to sing Olam Chesed Yibaneh, remind ourselves it's on us and we can do this, building a better world, and it all starts with love. So if you're wondering why was Rabbi Berkman crazy enough to get another dog, it's because I feel like dogs are such loving creatures, so I thought it made sense to double down on the dogs right about now. But we can show our love and bring our love in so many ways. And as we bring that harvest of light with us out from Hanukkah and into the work of our world after Shabbat, I hope that we will bring the love. The light and the love are all intertwined. And thank you for being part of this community and joining with us. That is truly an act of love as well. Whenever we're together, we're reminded that we're not here for ourselves. We're not here by ourselves. We're interconnected in a sacred tapestry. We're here with and for one another. Olam chesed yibaneh, da-da-dai, dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai. 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 I will build this world from love. Da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai. And you must build this world from love. Da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai. And if we build this world from love, da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai, then chesed yibane. Ta-da-dai, dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai. Olam chesed yibane. Ya-da-dai, ya-da-dai, ya-da-dai-dai. Olam chesed yibane. Ya-da-dai, ya-da-dai, ya-da-dai-dai. Olam chesed yibane. Ya-da-dai, ya-da-dai. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So,
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Heather, we can turn
Shabbat
off